Today we have a very special guest, Neha Mishra.
Thank you very much, Ankesh, and thanks to the collaborative canvas.
Leadership, what people used to see back those days, like 90s, and who would have learned through their MBAs back those days, have drastically changed these days now.
The business landscape has changed drastically.
Yeah.
The very first thing is personal connection. Today, if you see, personal connection is a very strong need of workforce.
So you're saying there's a personal connect which is missing?
For certain people, definitely missing. Without leadership, how do you know where to go? When I started my career 18 years back, I did not even know what is work-life balance.
Yeah.
In fact, I would take a lot of pride in saying that I'm a workaholic. That used to be a badge on my shoulders, and I used to take a lot of. So things have changed a lot because today's generation, especially, does not want to hear.
Yeah.
They want to. They're experiential. Look at our 15-second reels. They are experiential. They cannot handle content more than 15 seconds.
What other weaknesses would you see that people would struggle with, and they should not do that?
They exactly know what to speak, when to speak.
True.
In just the right words. And being an introvert doesn't takes anything away from you to be empathic, to have a personal connect, to show that kind of, that you're there, you're dependable.
When I used to deal with people, I see some are very extraordinary, talented. Some are talented, but they don't speak it out. Some are like learning.
It is mandatory today to understand that the world is very dynamic, change is inevitable, and as a leader, if you encourage that, if you showcase courage, if you show them than just telling them, then a lot of problems get sorted.
How do leaders are being chosen in this case, considering different dynamics?
I don't think leaders are chosen. I think leaders grow. You choose a good performer, depending on, again, going back to what is the industry requirement. So based on the industry requirement, based on the stakeholder requirement, you choose a person on the basis of certain parameters that each and every organization has, and you promote people. So leader is a becoming process. Leadership is a process. It's never a destination. I don't believe so.
What is that they should create a culture around both, innovation and managing the team at the same time, that they sail the, boat smoothly?
In my opinion, the very first thing which a leader needs to understand is to celebrate failures.
Good point.
And to set up for success. Which is where I see a lot of leaders start panicking.
True.
And of course they will panic, right? Because there is always a hot button in an organization, right? A leader who is like a sponge, who understands that failures are inevitable. Do you know what is the biggest trap of leadership? Today, this generation does not have the bandwidth of being told and being given too much handover, and they want to experiment.
Welcome to the Collaborative Canvas, where we bring you insightful conversations with industry leaders, innovators, and change makers. Today, we have a very special guest, Neha Mishra, founder of Neha Talks, a leadership coach and a corporate trainer with over a decade of experience in training and development. Neha specializes in leadership skills, team building, strategies, and behavioral programs that empower individuals and organizations to perform at their peak. In this episode, we'll deep dive into leadership development, team dynamics, and the power of coaching in creating sustainable change. So whether you're a corporate leader, an entrepreneur, or even someone who's looking to enhance their own leadership skills, this conversation is for you. Stay with us till the end, and don't forget to subscribe to the Collaborative Canvas on YouTube and Spotify for more insights. So let's get into this conversation right now. Welcome, Neha.
Thank you very much, Ankesh, and thanks to the collaborative canvas for having me today.
Yeah, I am kind of mesmerized with the fact that when we met today, you said, it was you said a word, right? I manifested.
Oh yeah, I think so.
And I realized that, if I would have manifested something else, probably like, learn more about my leadership skills and something around it, I would have probably, brought you long back onto my episode. But I think now that's the right time we're shooting in a studio, and I am so glad that you actually flown all the way from Pune to come here, and we are talking about leadership skills by large, because this is something I still feel a very burning topic nowadays.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, first, let me say, I absolutely think that you have manifested me to come here, because otherwise I had no plans of coming to Delhi as early as this. But thank you once again for having me. You rightly said the word time. So the right timing is very important. But I believe when we talk about leadership, while it is a burning topic, in my opinion, it is always a burning topic. Because without leadership, how do you know where to go?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that today we are talking about this, and I'll be happy to contribute and share as much as I have with me.
Awesome. So I'll probably quickly start with the first question. I come from a market research background, and I started my career long back in 1998 with a company called Gallup, and then I've seen the evolution within market research. So when I say market research, I'm sure the evolution was majorly across bigger product and manufacturing companies or other e-com sites, and then we saw different dynamic environments were created. Leadership, what people used to see back those days, like 90s, and who would have learned through their MBAs back those days, have drastically changed these days now. You cannot just simply just go and say that I'm a leader and this is what I'm dictating to. That's not the way it works. And then I started realizing what could be specific qualities the leader should possess and in should have, because now you're talking to a hell lot new people. Gen Zs, they're like different. Millennials, they're totally different, and alphas, oh my god. So what would you recommend those top 3 qualities a leader should have when it comes to dealing with people with diverse backgrounds?
You hit the right spot, because you said that the leadership has changed drastically. Just look at what has changed after COVID. The business landscape has changed drastically.
Yeah.
So before I even get into what are the leadership qualities, I think it's important to understand who is being led and what has changed there, because it's all starts from the followers, and that's what I believe. More than leadership, I think I believe in followership. Anyways, we'll talk about that a little later. But what has changed in the people who we are leading, right? So the very first thing is personal connection. Today, you talked about multi-generational workforce, right?
Yeah.
So today, if you see, personal connection is a very strong need of workforce, right? I'll give you one example. In one of my training rooms, what happened is one of the newly appointed team lead or newly appointed manager, if you may call it, who's ideally a leader, supposed to be doing a leadership job, So in one of the rants, he's like, my team has been complaining that I don't even wish them good morning and I don't give them personal attention. Is this the only thing left in my work now? And there's so much that I have to do. And, since I've become the manager, I'm doing everyone's job. So, what is this thing to complain about, And so think about it, he is complaining about the fact that the team wants to be addressed, the team wants to be given attention, and he's not even thinking about it. He in fact thinks it's something which is very unusual.
So you're saying there's a personal connect which is missing?
For certain people, definitely missing. But what I'm saying is that more than personal connect being missed, people are craving for personal connect more than ever. Okay. That is one of the biggest change that has happened in the workforce before COVID and after COVID.
I'll probably come back on to this point later on, but I'll let you complete the, this training thing that you have identified, because this is pretty new to me. And I'm still thinking, when I generally meet back those days, I see a lot of introverts and a lot of extroverts being part of the team. And introverts, if they get promoted to a position, not necessarily they would be the right leader.
That's a separate question.
Which is why I'll come back to you later on to that.
I will definitely love to answer that. The second thing, let's get back to who are we leading, right? What has changed there? So the second thing that has changed is that, and you rightly picked it up in the beginning of when you were asking this question, that how the workforce today sees trust and respect is very different. I remember when I started my career, at that point in time, for me, respect was, oh, boss has come. And I would not even dare to ask too many questions. If the boss has addressed something to me, I feel that day my day is made, or made well or made worst, you know. But today, that's not the case. Today, you have to be in constant connect. So today, respect and trust is not defined by the designation that you have. And designation guarantees nothing. You know,
True.
so that's second. The third thing that has changed is that the workforce is far more ambitious, they are thriving, but at the same time they value balance very well. Which,
that's also true.
At least when I started my career 18 years back, I did not even know what is work-life balance.
Yeah.
In fact, I would take a lot of pride in saying that I'm a workaholic. You know, that used to be a badge on my shoulders, and I used to take a lot of. So things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
So if we start looking at the problem statement first, the solution finding becomes much easier. So coming back to the three things, and if I have to limit it to three, I mean whatsoever.
Yeah.
But what's one very important thing is to understand that emotional intelligence plays a very big role. So as a leader today, if you do not understand vulnerability, if you do not showcase, embrace vulnerability, then there is a disconnect in personal connection, if you see, right? So, and also because we're working with such diverse workforce, it's important for us to be abled with emotional intelligence. It's very important. So that's number one. Number two, in my opinion, is also how do you navigate through change? And courage is a big word there. So navigating through change with courage. Because as a leader, if you do not have a capability of taking risk, of encouraging people take risk, and at the same time, you know, being the sailor of the ship and saying that, okay, mistake is being made, I am there, we will do it together. You know, so if you do not have that courage, then how are people going to look at you? So that's very important. So it is mandatory today to understand that the world is very dynamic, change is inevitable, and as a leader, if you encourage that, if you showcase courage, if you show them than just telling them, then a lot of problems get sorted, you know, because today's generation especially does not want to hear.
Yeah.
They want to, they're experiential. You know, look at our 15-second reels. They are experiential. They cannot handle content more than 15 seconds. I mean, that I hope you still watch this podcast. But, you know, that's how it is. So, so I think these are some of the most important qualities, and there are many. But just because I had to filter down to a few, I think these are some really important leadership traits that today's leader must have.
I think courage is definitely one, because, you know, at a given point of time when the environment is dynamic, I see a lot of people actually walk away from, you know, saying that they are actually workaholic, they really wanted to balance their life. But considering the dynamism in the industry is not changing, you know, the same pressure that the company gets from their clients gets drive down to the employees. And, you know, doing that work-life balance, you come up with a lot of weaknesses as well, you know, lethargic. I've done so much, I don't want it to do. Procrastination, I'll do it later on. Something like that. So if a leader is just not complementing the task which they are actually getting and not ensuring that, you know, kind of, you know, I am somebody who wanted really to have a personal connect, and then I am kind of a guy who would say, all right, let's do it next time. That's the kind of a message I'm also, you know, giving back to my team. And that's what I'm not making, being a good leader, I'm not even making good people to come up to that place. So what other weaknesses would you see that people would struggle with, and they should not do that?
Right. You know, I'll definitely talk about that. But I think, you know, as you rightly said, and about introvert leader, right? And how as an introvert leader, you do feel that, how do I make the first move? And I will give you an example also of it. You know, one of my sessions, we were doing a coaching intervention, and the leader came up to me. We were talking about the value of connecting more and creating avenues for people to connect more in the team, because collaboration is what we talk about. And today the biggest challenge is that with most of the organizations going hybrid, how do you ensure that they actually, while I'm talking, it's a paradox, while I'm talking about a personal connect, on the other hand, people may say, how do we even make a personal connect, because we don't even know who is on the other side of the call that we are into. So that definitely remains to be one of the challenge, that in a hybrid setup, how do you create this personal connect? And on top of it, if you have an introvert leader, then it's a double-edged sword, right?
It's more like, you're sailing the boat with a hole.
Um, but I'll tell you, see, this is where the coaching intervention really comes into play. Because one of the best qualities that an introvert, anybody who's an introvert has, that they exactly know what to speak, when to speak.
True.
In just the right words. And being an introvert doesn't takes anything away from you to be empathic, to have a personal connect, to show that kind of, that you're there, you're dependable. So trust has nothing to do with being introvert or being extrovert. It's about what do you show, what do you put in your actions. Do you stand up there? You may not come up and talk to a person to show personal connect. But if the person is, if your team member is staying up till 9 p.m. in the evening, and if you're there to show him solidarity and to show him that, hey, I'm there whenever you need. I'm not going to do your work, but I'm there. I'm there for a support. But you're not really speaking much, but you're showing it. So, so hence I believe that's not really detrimental in creating a personal connect. In fact, that can also be done with the right kind of coaching provided to a person. Their questions, like you rightly said, that they may have these kind of doubts coming in. So when you really help them navigate through their own questions and their own inhibitions, they will be able to sail through that.
I agree 100% onto that, because when I used to deal with people, I see some are very extraordinary, talented. Some are talented, but they don't speak it out. Some are like learning. Yeah. And that's where you probably have to put your, more guidance factor into it, so that you can make them learn that you can step up. Yeah. But then there are people within the team who are, who are trying to prove themselves in all the ways, including all the ways. And then there are people who would just see that, they're trying their best to do whatever they can. They have a different mindset altogether. And he doesn't possess that kind of qualities. He's just doing this because he wanted this.
Yes.
I'm not going into the details of it, and I'm sure you understand that. Now, considering that you've been traveling a lot, you've been meeting many people, you've seen diverse organizations, and, our country is also diverse in itself. The senior folks may be a different race, different caste. The junior folks are different race and different caste. These are the cultural differences that I'm talking about, are always there in most of those organizations. How do people should, come up with strategies that can fill that leadership gap, which generally one see from their angle versus the people who are already there and wanted, again, going to that interpersonal connect, because, once you're there, you really don't have to be very judgmental about who to pick and how to pick. You should know whom to pick and why to pick.
See, I think what happens is that leadership is applied in our daily life, right? Regardless of industries, etc. But one important factor we need to understand is that the leadership style also changes from industry perspective and also the organization's culture. So, and hence you will see when we talk about ITES, I do a lot of work with them, consulting, I do a lot of work with them. They are already far more matured, far more informed, and consciously they put in a lot of work in training their team members, their leaders across, in training them on multicultural diversity and how to overcome different perceptional biases that we have, stereotypes that we have. They do a lot of work on that front. But again, certain industries so far have a very direct approach of leadership, and they are very product centric. Like manufacturing, pharma, they are very much, they're very outcome based. Yeah. Their leadership is also very outcome based. But the good part, what I see recently I just concluded a program with one of the leading pharmaceutical brands. And what I see is that they are making that conscious effort in including, in helping their people learn more skillfully and also doing these kind of interventions where they can expose them to how the workforce demand is changing and not limit themselves just to the industry demand and just to product centric approach. They are going more towards the human centric approach that we're talking. So that's why they are putting in a lot of effort in, again, taking up emotional intelligence as one of a prime skill building exercises for their organizations. Multicultural diversity, understanding that, understanding biases and stereotypes, so on and so forth. So that's a good sign. I mean, when the leaders are trained in this direction, when they are also exposed to what they have been doing for years versus what is happening currently and where they want to be. Where was I, where am I, and where do I want to go? So when they are taken through that journey, when they're taken through those intervention programs, which are usually longer journey programs, I think they internalize it. A lot of them do. And the ones who don't have their own learning lessons in their paths of leadership.
But again, considering that, bridging the leadership gap is always evident. I mean, people move from one place to another in terms of their designations, and they always look out for somebody who can be like them, or at least know how the dynamic environment actually works and can handle the situation. So again, citing that, the certain qualities really need to be. How do leaders are being chosen in this case, considering different dynamics?
I don't think leaders are chosen. I think leaders grow. You choose an individual, you choose a good performer, depending on, again, going back to what is the industry requirement. So based on the industry requirement, based on the stakeholder requirement, you choose a person on the basis of certain parameters that each and every organization has, and you promote people. Now, of course, when you promote people, you eventually have a team that you would look forward to, and there are people roles that you choose. Certain people choose to do that, certain people don't choose to do that, but they end up having one. I believe when you get into the role of a people manager, when you get to the stage where you have venues to showcase those skills that make further leaders and not just followers, that's when you start bringing up or becoming a leader. So leader is a becoming process. Leadership is a process. It's never a destination. I don't believe so. And that's why, if you see in the concept of leadership also, there are multiple concepts right now. So right now, one of my most favorite concept is situational leadership, where a leader actually identifies what style to apply in what situation with different audience. If my workforce, again, one, multi-generational, with different experience, with different attitude, in different geographies. So as a leader, if I don't know what is the strength of my workforce, who am I actually leading, how will I determine what is the right way of leading them? Because one style doesn't fit all. So that's what situational leadership actually talks about. How do you navigate through different 4 styles, and how do you identify the strengths of your team and you guide them in the right direction? Otherwise, my stomach is full and you keep giving me food while I probably am dehydrated and I just want water. You see?
Got it. And considering that, there's a certain working style for every leader, we always want, leader to create a culture of learning and innovation. What's your take on this? And now that I know that, there are few things that you've actually mentioned about, the change in the environment is something that a leader can identify it before anybody else and then train the people accordingly. What is that they should create a culture around both, innovation and managing the team at the same time, that they sail the, boat smoothly?
So that's a wonderful thing, and that's what a job of a leader is. In my opinion, the very first thing which a leader needs to understand is to celebrate failures.
Good point.
And to set up for success. Which is where I see a lot of leaders start panicking.
True.
And of course they will panic, right? Because there is always a hot button in an organization, right? So I think a leader who is like a sponge, who understands that failures are inevitable, and also who is encouraging, we call it psychological safety. So who is encouraging the environment of psychological safety, where the employees, the workforce doesn't feel like they're being judged, They are ready to share what they have with them, and they don't have to worry about that, oh, is this the goofiest idea? Will I be mocked upon? This is where a culture is developed. So when when a leader encourages failures, when a leader says that go make mistakes, and of course a leader has to identify that this cannot happen abruptly. This is very well planned strategy. This is not something that today I decided that okay, I will celebrate failures, I will fight for my team and it will work. No, it doesn't. You have to plan it. You have to understand when are your lean periods. You have to make it like a year-long journey where, and I always advise some simple steps one can take is, maybe one day in the entire week or one day in 15 days, you can allocate 1 hour or 2 hours where you are just asking your people to come up with the most innovative ideas, or you are leaving it to them that you decide how can we encourage innovation and creativity in the team, and you keep doing some activities where people are coming up with ideas, they're sharing, they're not being judged, and you celebrate those. So this is how when you develop it, it's like how when you have to run a marathon, you can't start running a marathon tomorrow morning, right? You have to prep for it. You have to do strength training for it. So you have to train yourself for it, even as a leader, and then get into it, And also, understand this is one very critical thing, that not everyone in your team will have the attribute and the capability of being innovative and creative. So that's where, as a leader, you need to identify what is the strength of my team and allocate the right roles and encourage the culture within the team. But don't put people in a spot where they feel, some people really get affected with failure. Yeah. So identify it and do it rightfully.
And I was actually thinking about the same thing when you said, they should work on certain activities. These activities cannot be or may not be formal. You can do it over a chai break. You can do it on a lunch break. You can just call them up over a cup of coffee or bar stuff. I think the best part about the conversation is leaders should be focused, but it doesn't mean that they really need to be on their toes to be focused, because again that panic button gets hit again and then you lose what you really wanted to create. So peace of mind, the calmness and the compassion and the composition of your own self definitely needed. Can you give me a real life example around how those convertible leaders were created and those situational aspect also played its own part, and considering they're born 90s?
Wow. So you're talking about 90s?
Yeah.
So basically you were saying, how does a millennial manages a Gen Z?
Yes.
Let me tell you, first of all, that's a very difficult one because I hear that as a challenge from a lot of millennial, which I also call as young leaders. Do you know what is the biggest trap of leadership? The biggest trap, and it's a real life example. It's coming from a real life examples because in the facilitation process, in the training room, interventions is what you see this. That while they are given the designation of a leader, so they feel they are a leader, they also feel that they are responsible for the people, so they understand that from a leadership perspective, but they are already and they are only living in the mindset of a manager. Do you see that difference?
Yeah.
That while you are supposed to be a leader and you think you are a leader, I have the designation, I am the team lead, I am the leader, I have my team, but when you are executing, when you're putting your actions into place, you're doing it as a manager.
Yeah.
So this is something which needs to be changed. Today's generation, in my experience, and I also work a lot with Gen Z, especially MBA final year students. I help them prepare for their placements, and I do it very intentionally because I feel that helps me bridge the gap. When I go out to middle level management, this is the workforce that they are getting into.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel one is that the leaders need to understand the concept of experiential learning. Today, this generation does not have the bandwidth of being told and being given too much handover, and they want to experiment. So for example, if you want your just giving one example, okay, may not be applicable into few aspects or maybe, but just an example. Let's say you want your team member to come up with certain research, okay, and you have a certain way of doing that research, and you said that, okay, you know, visit these 5 sites and come up with this data, and I want it by tomorrow, whatsoever. Instead of doing this, try it by saying that, you know what, I give you 4 days, 5 days, or you tell me how much time ideally you can take, and we can negotiate on that. But I want you to go and actually do your primary research. Go out in the market. See how it's done. Feel how it's done. Tell me, come back, what were your challenges? Talk to me about that. And in case you want to take me along one of the days, I am more than happy to come along with you. And you will see their investment in that same project will be far more as compared to what you want them to do your way, because that's how we have learned. Because this generation is experiential. They want to do it. They want to make mistakes. And that's why you see so many of entrepreneurs are coming out of this generation.
Yeah.
So they don't want to do the same, you know, we call lakir ke fakir. They don't want to do that. While of course there are certain challenges and this generation needs to be guided a lot. That's a separate discussion. But at least their endeavor, their vision is solid. They want to do things and learn. So I believe managers today have to trust, show some trust, keep some margin of failure, which I was saying a while back, experiment with them, and also, you know, learn with them, grow with them. When you do that, you understand there is a power in the process. So when you do that, you will see, you will slowly start understanding their mindset better. And hey, it's not very difficult, right? Like, think about why are we even talking about just the Gen Z? When we have to interact with the generation, you know, 20 years ahead of us, even then we make efforts, right? Even then we spend time to understand how are they thinking and how are they operating, and we try to combat those challenges. So it's about the time that you invest in it. It's about less cribbing. I really tell most of the managers that please stop cribbing about the generation that you are working with, because this is the generation that can really, you know, pick mountains for you if you do this right.
So this has been an insightful discussion with Neha Mishra on leadership and team building, and specifically my personal favorite, again, it's about how you experiment things. As a leader of 90s, not just me, everybody who was born in 90s, I would agree to the fact that, you know, things are not the way they were and things are changing rapidly. And she shared valuable strategies that can help leaders create impactful teams and sustainable high performance teams with ease and compassion. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to hit that subscribe button, follow the Collaborative Canvas on YouTube and Spotify for more engaging discussions with the expert. And if you like to connect with Neha or book a coaching session, visit www.nehatalks.com or reach out to her on the email that I'll share in the description box. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, keep learning and keep leading.